Hey, Kevin, what's one spiritual practice that will help you grow?
Not hanging out with you.
Hey, everybody, my name is Scott Vermillion, and this is Kevin Hedges, and we're talking to you about spiritual practices that give you life. We're trying to take this season of Easter, and most people during Lent take something away, and that's good, but we want to put something in our lives that will help us grow. And so we're talking about trying on some spiritual practices that may be familiar or not as familiar with you. So today we're going to talk to Kevin about the spiritual practice of solitude. So tell us a little bit about your experience and sort of how you got started in solitude.
Yeah, you and I are very relational. We're people that are extroverts that like to be around other people and have that energy and that interaction. And so for me, it never came natural to do that. So I had an experience many years back in ministry where I had a chance for a sabbatical, for some extended time off. And God kind of made it known to me, and so did my leadership, that this is a time to spend time alone with God, to spend time in solitude. And it was very difficult. I'm like, what does that look like? And so I had a chance to spend several days, at one point a week, alone by myself. One time up in a cabin in the mountains of California, another time at the beach. I know that sounds horrible, and it was. No, it was great.
So tough places to be alone.
Yeah. And I had this fortunate experience to be alone and to experience solitude and know that it had dramatic transformational impact on my life, my spiritual life, and also some decision making that I had to do at the time. So.
Interesting. So was that hard for you to do it, especially as a huge extrovert, you know, it loves being around people? Was it hard to pull away?
It was hard to initiate it, to actually do it, but once you're in it, oh my gosh, you're like, okay, where's this been all my life? So it was wonderful once I was actually doing it and in the rhythm of it, and I didn't want to re-engage, but of course with family and other things, you have to do those things.
You got back to work.
It was wonderful.
That's cool. So I want to talk a little bit about getting through that initial barrier, right? Because I think that, you know, it's no secret that America is a busy culture. Like, we pride ourselves on the amount of busyness and overwork that we have. So what would be some ways that you would help coach us into breaking that initial barrier to get the time away?
Okay, I agree with you 100%. It's antithetical to who we are as a culture, to take time for ourselves with God, alone and undistracted. So that is probably obvious, but it really needs to be overstated so we realize, okay, we know that's what's happening. We're going to break that. The things that have to happen is for you to actually schedule time to be intentional about it. And the handout this week, we have some instructions for doing that. And it says to maybe put it on your calendar. Do the things that you know you need to do, is say, oh yeah, I got to do this. And that seems kind of pedantic, but that's one way to start with doing it. And I think you also need to tell the people around you that this is intentional and important in your life as well. Not to say, hey, you know, I got to do my thing. Whatever reaction they're going to have is their reaction, but you've got to say, I'm doing this because I know there's going to be great value in it, and you have to make it a priority. And as you mentioned, distractions. I mean, where do we start? You've got to turn off the phone. You've got to get away from the things that are going to keep you engaged when you shouldn't be. Social media, all those different things, TVs and music. I can tell you when it's a solitude situation for some, it's really helpful. For some other people like myself, it's not. I don't want music. I want silence and solitude. So those are some things that can help you ease into that, to schedule it. And there's more specific things that while you're doing it, some of the details, I think it's a good idea to have something with you to kind of write down ideas as you're coming into your head, because we can get distracted even in that time of solitude. And I know this sounds like it's bleeding over or overlapping with meditation and prayer. In some ways it is. And in both of those, or in all these cases, you also want to have an opportunity to kind of remember those things that you know might pop up in your head. We can't help it, it's going to happen. Jot those down, have something you can jot it down on, even if it's an iPad. I know that I said no digital devices, but whatever.
Turn the airplane mode on. You can't connect to the
there
internet.
you go. Perfect.
Well, I really like that, Kevin. That's really super helpful. And I know that the benefit that you shared earlier was that this pulling away actually helped you engage, which is counterproductive, right? Because we think we have to engage, we get all this stuff done, and then we can take a break. But this is you're seeing, the way you describe it is it's sort of a priority of engagement that we have to pull back in order for us to understand what decisions we need to make and where we need to apply ourselves and what energy we need to give to what. And it makes sense because Jesus did that, right? I mean, he was in the midst of this busy, ministry. Everybody's coming from all these towns, and he goes, I gotta go. I gotta pull out,
I think it's amazing when we talk about Jesus. Here's, the person in history, in human history, that changed everything. 3.5 years. That's really did his ministry work. So he had a pretty good run, 3.5 years. But during that time, you see it again and again, that he withdrew. And whether it's to the desert for 40 days or whether it was when there was large crowds and he had to pull away and be in solitude, that's pretty impressive. That he's not going go, 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 go. He's also modeling for us, again, in a short time of highly effective ministry. He was able to do that as well.
Well, this is really helpful. So one last thing is, as we try to think about some of the mechanics of it, because you and I are pastors, and we might have an unfair advantage, although the pressures to perform are still, we feel that as well.
Yeah, I think in every work environment, anything you're doing, even if you're someone who's raising children, even if you're someone who's retired, there's still a lot of pressure in this busy society.
And I think, what you said earlier about telling people around you, you're going to have to throw some responsibility on others if you're going to get this solitude, right? And so there's a permission giving that we can give each other to take that time away, especially if you connect to a family with small kids, and you've got to ask that, and you also got to be one to grant it to someone as well.
Blame us. Say our pastors told us we have to do this, and if we don't, something bad's going to, do whatever you need to do. I can't stress enough that time alone with God, alone with your thoughts, whether it be out in nature or some other place that kind of makes you feel the stillness around you. Can't express it.
Yeah, and would it be okay to kind of start small, as we build up to this?
Yeah, I know that in the instructions we had mentioned that set your timer for 7 minutes earlier before you wake up. 7 minutes is it's pretty small. I don't think we're asking a lot with that, and that may be prayer time that you've already got set aside, or saying maybe in addition to that, what does it mean just to sit in solitude? And it doesn't have to be first thing in the morning. I'm a late night guy, so I'm going to find that time where my wife and my daughter have gone to bed and they're chilling, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to sit on the back porch, and I'm just going to listen to what God's blowing through the trees around my backyard.
Yeah. I love that. You can do solitude in your backyard. You can take a walk. You can.
Huge.
And I would encourage you guys to however many minutes you feel like is too much, take 5 more. Right? You just stretch it just a little bit more, because the magic sometimes is in when you feel like you can't stand it anymore.
And I realize people won't have the opportunity that maybe you and I have every now and then to take these extended sabbaticals where we get to get away for a week or so at a time by ourselves. But if you ever get a chance to do that, huge.
Yeah, so if you're a golfer and are prone to 4 hours on the golf course, you have time. And so I would just encourage you to say, maybe put the links down a little bit and pick up time with the Lord. It's a good thing, and it does help us to re-engage. So Kevin, thanks for your encouragement, and let us know how you're experiencing solitude. What are the pressures you feel? What are the temptations you feel? And sort of what have been the benefits to you when you have pulled away? We'd love to hear about that. So tell us all about it so we can learn from you. All right, guys, have a great week. Thanks for tuning in.